Hey guys, Heidi Preeb here. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about Myers-Briggs, attachment theory, and any other theory that can help you understand yourself, other people, and how to bridge the gaps between you better. So today I wanted to talk about something that it occurred to me would make a really good video. I am in the middle of procrastinating a very large project for school. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently finishing up my master's degree in attachment theory. So I have a giant project due that I am trying to put the finishing touches on, and I keep pushing it back one more day and one more day and one more day. And if you are a perceiver in the Myers-Briggs system, this is probably not an uncommon experience for you. We tend to work more and more furiously as a deadline approaches, and ENFPs in particular can be very guilty of this. So there is a hack, a tool that I learned during the year of my life when I was studying neurolinguistic programming, which is basically a field that is kind of mindfulness on steroids, is what I like to call it. The founder of neurolinguistic programming, who is the person that I trained under, basically just went to all of the most prominent psychologists who were on the scene back in the days when he was developing NLP and asked them, what is the tool you have that most consistently works with your clients? And then he took those tools and he assembled this kind of program that basically allowed people to develop greater and greater mindfulness practices to help them understand what was going on inside their minds and how to solve their problems faster. NLP is very TE in a lot of ways. Like, it's all about gaining an awareness of how we think, but then using it to solve problems more effectively. I believe that the founder of the field is an ENTJ, and the tools that I'm going to be referencing today all come from NLP. Now, basically, what I'm doing here is combining NLP techniques, so mindfulness tactics that I took from NLP, and applying them to the James Clear principle of knowing when you're going to get something done. So James Clear, if you have not heard me talk about him already, is a man who wrote a book called Atomic Habits, which once again is very TE, helps people understand how they can structure their time more effectively. And I think that it's actually a great book for ENFPs because it really takes into account who you authentically are as a person and how you can work with that to get the best results. But one of the things that he says in the book that I really love is that a lot of the time, it's not that we don't know what we need to do, it's that we don't know when we're going to do it. So when we have a goal, a task, a project, an assignment that we know we need to get done, usually we can figure out what the steps are, but the reason why we don't do it until the last minute, if we are last minute people, is because we don't actually have a clear idea in our heads that is concrete about when we're going to do the thing. Now, this is a lot more deceptive than it seems because a lot of us think we know when we're going to do something, but actually we don't. So as an example, let's say I tell myself I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, and I might go to sleep thinking tomorrow I'm definitely going to the gym, like I have a plan, right? But if I don't know what exact time I'm going to the gym tomorrow, as well as what time I have to start getting ready to go to the gym tomorrow. So what time do I have to put on my shoes, grab my car keys, go outside, start driving towards the gym? It's going to be very easy for me to accidentally not go because I'm going to have a really easy time losing track of time, thinking about other things, telling myself, oh yeah, I have a couple hours before dinner. I'll definitely do it as soon as I just check one more email or watch one more episode of the show or whatever it is, right? So often when we think we're being specific about when we're going to do something, we're not being specific enough. Now, here's where NLP comes in. NLP is the study of not what we do, not why we do things, but how we do things. So NLP is all about breaking down the sequence of events that leads to actions inside of our own minds and figuring out where in the very specific sequence of thoughts we go wrong. So where we end up pivoting away from the result we want and following a different train of thought. And in order to figure out when we're going to do the things that we want to do, we have to get extremely specific about every part in that process and what it will look like to make sure that we actually end up doing it. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of a process. Try to bring into your mind something that you need to get done and use that as the model that you map this onto as we go through these steps, okay? So for myself, it's going to be finishing this essay that I need to hand in by the end of the week for my course. But for you, it can be absolutely anything. It can be a work assignment. It could be a social assignment. Maybe you have a text you've been procrastinating answering for a while. It can be anything that you are stressed about and that you want to get done. Okay, so here we go. Step one, and this seems simple, but it's actually not that simple, is visualize when you're going to do this thing. Now, once again, you probably have kind of a vague idea of when you're going to do this thing. So for example, for me, I have this piece of writing due on Friday. So I'm like, okay, I know that by Wednesday, I need to be like really in the trenches with it and devoting all of my time to it. I know that Monday and Tuesday of this week, I need to be passively researching and collecting information about it. And I know that by Thursday evening, I need to be pretty much done because I have to hand it in Friday morning. But that is not specific enough. Okay? It sounds specific. I think it's specific. It's not. Because I don't know when I wake up tomorrow morning how I'm structuring my day yet, right? I don't know what the first thought of the day I'm gonna have is. I don't know what my first action of the day is gonna be. And that gives my brain a lot of leeway to get distracted by a lot of other things. So I have to know in concrete time blocks when exactly I'm going to do my essay. And I also need to know what do I need to get done before I start doing my essay to make sure that it doesn't distract me in the process of writing. So I'm going to do some research tomorrow is not specific enough. What I need to tell myself is I'm going to be at my desk, fully dressed, ready for the day, coffee on my table by 9 a.m. and I have to have my book open to the first page by 9:01 a.m. So now I know if I need to be at my desk with my page open by 9:01 a.m., I have to wake up by at least 8 a.m., which means I have to go to bed by at least 1 a.m., which means I have to start winding down by at least 11 p.m. tonight. I have to take a shower, get settled into bed, whatever it is, so that the sequence of events leads me to a place where by 9 a.m. tomorrow, I am already reading my textbook and figuring out which studies I need to put into this essay. Now, this probably seems fairly simple to you, but what probably is not as apparent is how often you are actually not doing this. So we know that we're going to do something when we're going to do it if we can map out the specific sequence of events that needs to happen all the way back to this exact moment in order for us to be doing that thing on the timeline that we want to be doing it on. And it's really important, and NLP is extremely explicit about this, to get a very strong visual image in your mind of what it's going to be like in your environment when you're doing that thing. So if I'm at my desk looking at my page, it's 9:01 a.m. I know that because I can see my phone beside me on the desk and it reads 9:01. I know exactly how the light is going to be slanting in through the window. I know which noises I'm going to hear from the neighboring apartments as people are getting up to start the day. I know literally what I'm going to be looking at, and when I look up and around me, what I'm going to see, hear, feel, smell, and touch. I know exactly what's going to be going on in my sensory environment, and I can really picture myself doing it at the specific time that I would be doing it, right? So when I think to myself, oh, I'm gonna do some research tomorrow, that could mean one of about 10 different things. It could mean I'm going to call someone and talk out a project. It could mean that I'm going to go to the library and browse through books. It could mean I'm gonna go for a walk and listen to a story on Audible. It could mean I'm going to sit in front of my computer in bed and I'm gonna look through Google Scholar. It could mean so many different things, so I need to be very specific about which of those myriad things it means when I say I'm going to research. I have to pick one of them specifically, decide exactly what time I'm going to do it at, and then really mentally visualize what it's going to look like at that specific time when I'm doing it, okay? That's step one. Step two, and we already talked about this a little bit, is bringing the feeling into your body that you will have when you are doing that thing. So for me, I know that I have a very different feeling in my body when I am actively writing an essay and I'm really in a flow state and I'm really engaged with it, versus when I'm sitting at my desk telling myself I'm writing an essay, but really what I'm doing is browsing the internet and distracting myself. So we need to be very specific about tuning into what it feels like in our bodies when we are actually carrying out the task that we mean to carry out. So for me, I know that I get this feeling when I'm focusing really deeply on a task of like the rest of the world is kind of blurred out. All I'm seeing is what's right in front of me. Ideas are connecting in my brain. I'm often actually visualizing pieces of writing kind of up and around my mind, and I'm pulling those kind of pieces of research or ideas that I'm thinking about into my computer onto the page, and I can see myself kind of writing and backspacing and rewriting. And I know that in my body, and I'll be feeling this energy that kind of starts in my torso and comes up into my arms, and that allows me to keep my focus really intently on what I am doing. That is what's happening when I'm actually engaged in the process of writing. Now, this is very different than, let's say, when I'm sitting at my computer thinking about, oh, should I book an Airbnb for the trip that I want to take next month? Should I check to see if anyone's messaged me on any of my social media sites? That's a very kind of relaxed, scattered energy. I almost like see tweets and vacation homes and other thoughts that I have floating through my awareness, and I don't have that kind of focused spotlight on what I want to be doing. That's a very different inner mental experience. So we also have to picture not just what we are doing, but what our inner mental state is like when we are actually doing the thing that we want to do. To use a different example, let's say you really want to go to the gym tomorrow. Feel in your body what it feels like when you know you are going to the gym. So not when you think you're going to the gym, maybe, and you hope you're going to the gym, but when you're actually like, yes, I know I'm going to the gym because I'm actively in my gym outfit, walking towards the door with my car keys in my hand. What thoughts are you having? What feeling is present in your physical body in those moments? Really picture it, because that's the energy that you will be tapping into when you actually carry this action out. And again, use that same process that we used with the other example. So what time of day is it? How is the light slanting in through the windows? What do you see on your way out the door, down the hallway, into your car, into the subway, whatever it is? What is the visual process, but also the kinesthetic felt experience of you finally acting on this thing? Get really, really clear on that inside of your mind and inside of your body, okay? Step number 3, make sure you are differentiating between what's a maybe and what's a definitely. So this is a really interesting one that NLP personally gave me the biggest kind of aha moment about when I realized this. If you are a person who identifies as a little bit indecisive or who sometimes struggles to make decisions, whether they're big or small in nature, it's often because you don't know whether or not you are serious about the decision. You can often end up with this feeling of, I don't know if I can trust myself. And NLP actually gives us language for figuring out when we can trust ourselves and when we can't. And in order to do that, we have to become extremely good at mindfulness. And this specific mindfulness task is all about figuring out how you know that you're maybe going to do something versus how you know you're definitely going to do something, okay? So what we're gonna do is tune into both the mental and physiological sensations that come along with knowing versus hoping. So let's say I am hoping that tomorrow I'm going to go for a 2-hour walk where I listen to a book on Audible that I need to finish in order to write my essay, because that's something that I perceive myself as needing to get done. If I am hoping that I'm going to do that thing, when I think about it, here's what I'm going to visualize in my mind. And if you're not used to thinking visually, that's totally fine. When I started studying NLP, I was like, I am not a visual thinker at all. When you ask me to do these tasks or when the task involves visualizing things, I really struggle. But I actually think that there's just a limitation in terms of what we mean when we say visualizing. So I was thinking like, oh, maybe other people see things in really explicit, bright, clear colors and scenes, almost like they're watching a movie. It doesn't have to be like that at all. All you have to do is be kind of aware of even like which shapes are floating by in your mind as you're thinking about things. So when I have the feeling of maybe I'm going to go for a walk tomorrow and read my book and finish that part of the research process, what I visualize when I really pay attention, and this can take some practice, is almost like a Rolodex of scenes flashing past my awareness. One of those scenes is, let's say, me thinking 2:00 p.m. and then going for a walk and listening to my book. But another scene is me thinking 2:00 p.m. and then going, oh, maybe I'll call my friend. Maybe I won't go for my walk. Maybe I'll still be at home at 2. Maybe I'm going to be working on something else. There is not a solid, set, grounded vision of what I'm going to be doing at 2 p.m. tomorrow. There is kind of a montage of possible things I could be doing, and it's almost like I'm trying to grab the one that I want and hope that I'm going to hold on to it. That's what it feels like for me internally. That's what I visualize internally when I think about what I might do or what I hope that I will do at a given point in time. If I know for sure that I'm doing something, my inner experience is very different. So for example, later this week, I know that I have a block of classes that I need to go to between 8 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. So when I picture that day, I picture myself waking up, I picture myself sitting down, opening my computer, clicking on the Zoom link, opening up my class, and I picture myself sitting there until 11:30 a.m. with the odd coffee or bathroom break. And when I picture that day, I do not picture any possible alternatives for what I could be doing between 8 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. I have not come up with a single other alternate possible plan that I'm even remotely maintaining, because I see a schedule of my day in my mind where those hours are blocked off and everything else is a little bit more movable and changeable and debatable, but those hours are not. So it's almost like picturing a graphic file where one image is stuck in place, it can't be moved, but everything else around it can be kind of moved and shaken up, and sometimes the things are almost bouncing off that one thing that's stationary in place. But I know for sure that there's not an alternative to this one plan. Of course, if like someone died or there was some crazy emergency, I'd be able to move it. But I don't actively spend any time thinking about alternatives because I am 100% sure that barring an emergency, that is where I will be from 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on Friday. And often that is how we visualize the plans that we're sure of. They are clear, they're concise, we think about what we could do around them, but the plan itself feels very solid and very set. And that's how I know that I'm going to for sure do something. I don't entertain any other ideas about what I might do at that time. I think of that time as set in stone and everything else is a little bit more movable or changeable around it. Now, this might not be specifically how you visualize the process of doing something versus not doing something, but it's really worth spending some time with and really just pulling into your awareness. What's something you are 100% sure you're gonna do? It can be anything. It can be going to sleep tonight. It can be brushing your teeth before you go to bed. It can be a flight that you know you need to catch later this week. What does it look like when you picture that thing versus what does it look like in your mind when you picture something that you're not yet as sure of? So that could be what you're gonna eat for dinner 2 nights from now. It could be a conversation that you're gonna have later. It could be what you're going to watch on TV when you get home tonight. It could be what you're going to be doing on June 4th of this year. If you're watching this on or close to June 4th, that might not work as well. Pick a date further in the future. But I really want you to start observing what it feels like and what it looks like inside of your own mind when you're sure about what you're going to do versus when you still feel like there are alternate possibilities, because you can save yourself a lot of time and agony by just figuring out how to start visualizing the thing that you hope you'll do or that you want to do as if it is as solid as that thing that you know you are going to do, right? So if I take that Rolodex of moving plans and I take 2 p.m. going for a walk, listening to my book, and I shove it in my schedule and I visualize it as if it is as rock solid and as centered and as concrete and immovable as the class that I'm going to go to on Friday, there is a much better chance that tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'm going to be going on that walk, listening to my book, and completing the plan that I set out to complete. Because I made the deliberate, conscious choice to eliminate those other possibilities that I didn't realize until I really thought about it were constantly flickering through my mind, right? That's what's fun about this. Once you can get a visualization of your inner world, you can actually start playing with it. And the last step in this process is try to have an anchor for what will be happening once this is done. So this can be particularly important if we do not have a specified timeline already set up. What this helps us do is get identified with a point in the future in which this task will be done and allow ourselves to think backwards from that person's perspective about what steps led us there. So, for example, there is something that I had to get done this week that was so stressful for me, like a situation that truly caused me an abnormal amount of stress. Basically, I had to have a very difficult conversation with someone that I was really dreading leading up to it. Not because I thought it would go bad, but just because there are some types of confrontation I do not like having. Every single day I told myself for about 4 days in a row, I'm going to have this conversation tomorrow. Every single day I did not do it. Finally, I called my closest friend and I said, I'm going to have a difficult conversation that is probably going to dysregulate me a little bit emotionally afterwards. Can you come over at 7 o'clock on Wednesday and debrief the conversation with me? And she said, yes, I can clear my schedule for Wednesday. I can be there at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. Now I know in my mind, there's going to be a time when this situation is over, when I have already done the thing that I'm currently now hoping I will do in the future. And I'm allowing myself to think very concretely about what it's going to look like, literally, practically, where I will be, what I will be seeing, what I will be hearing, what I will be feeling in my body when this thing is done. It'll be dark. If she's coming over at 7, I'm definitely making dinner, so I might be chopping up vegetables. It's supposed to snow on Wednesday evening, so I'm probably going to see some snowflakes outside of the window. And I'll probably be telling her the story of how the conversation went, and I can tune into my body and think about what it's going to feel like when that conversation is over. So sometimes when we're really afraid to do something in particular, or even to get on board with a task, it's often because we can't picture the experience of that task being over. So we kind of feel like once I start doing this thing, it's going to last forever. So once I start writing my essay, if I don't know when I'm handing it in, I'm just going to feel like in some stupid part of my brain, like once I start writing that essay, I will always be writing that essay and the experience will never end. Once I go into that difficult conversation, I will always be having that difficult conversation and it will never end. It's really important to be very, very associated with the feeling we will have and the experience we will be experiencing when the thing that we need to do is over. So that gives us a future anchor that we can orient ourselves towards and now work backwards from. So if my friend is coming over at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, that means that I need to have this conversation with this other person by, at the latest, Wednesday afternoon, because I'm going to need to get home, get some groceries set up for when my friend comes over, make sure that I have time to change and relax a little bit and clean up my house a little. So now I have a much more solid timeline because by, let's say, 3 p.m., I know that I have to be having this conversation with this other person. But what's really cool about this is that often just thinking about what it's going to be like in the afterwards allows our anxiety to really ease up, because we don't often think, again, about what it's going to feel like once the scary thing is done, once the thing that we are procrastinating is over. We might kind of dissociate and start envisioning a magical future where the thing is well in the past, but we rarely think about when it is 9 a.m. and I have just handed my essay in, how will I feel then? What will I be seeing, experiencing, feeling, touching at that moment? And then we can work backwards to what steps led us to that place by first visualizing the endpoint. And this is, by the way, also a really good anxiety reduction tactic, because when we have anxiety, we're often kind of getting stuck on possible thoughts about the future. So for example, I have to fly later this week. I hate flying. I fly often, but I absolutely hate it. And one of my earliest aha moments with NLP was realizing that I have far less anxiety, like at least 50% less anxiety, getting into an airplane if I know what the arrivals hall looks like when I get off the airplane. So when I'm flying home to Toronto, where I live, I am much less nervous than if I'm flying to a country I've never been before, because I can think about what it's like when I arrive in Toronto. And so as an ENFP, my introverted sensing function has an internal map of what's going to happen, and so it can start self-regulating around that. And if you don't have an internal map of what something is going to look and feel like when you arrive there, you can help yourself as much as possible by, let's say, Googling what it might look like at that arrivals hall. Or if you are trying to hand in an assignment or hand in a project, literally, you can visualize yourself, let's say, emailing your client and saying, here's the project, here's what I need from you next, attaching the file and sending it, and then noticing what you're gonna feel in your body as soon as you've done that. Right? So get really clear on what it's going to look like when the thing that you are anxious about is done. And if it feels too big, so for example, for me, it actually feels too big to picture myself handing in my essay. What I need to picture is finishing smaller parts of it. So what's it going to feel like when I've finished the first paragraph? What's it going to feel like when I have mapped out the structure? What's it going to feel like when I am doing my bibliography? Think about it step by step if you have too much anxiety around looking at the whole picture. So last thing before I let you go on this process is that this is not meant to be about rigidly keeping yourself stuck in some routine. So let's say something starts taking a little bit longer than you meant for it to. That's totally okay. It's just about being aware of what's happening inside your brain and in which areas your thoughts are working for you versus against you, and how you can start capitalizing on your ability to visualize your future in order to start working it more to your advantage. What this process helps us with as perceivers who can sometimes struggle to structure our time is know concretely, unambiguously when things are going to happen. And I promise you that if you struggle to get things done in a timely fashion, this is probably a much bigger part of the problem than you think it is, right? So you can take your power back in at least this one area, because if I know anything about our type, it is once we get going, once we're in that flow state, we are golden. We just have to figure out how to initiate that action in the first place. And once we get that started, we're usually pretty golden. At the end of this video, I'm realizing this hella applies to INFPs as well, maybe even slightly more so maybe I'll throw that into the video title. On that note, if you are an ENFP or an INFP personality type, I run 6-week ENFP and INFP soul bootcamp programs where you get virtual lessons delivered to your inbox, helping you manage your natural energy in a much more authentic way so that you can get stuff done that you actually care about on your own terms, rather than trying to kind of constantly react to the external demands of your environment. So it is a lot of stuff similar to this video, and NLP is infused throughout the course, and it gives you a lot of hacks that can help you work with your natural energy. But anyways, let me know in the comments what you think of this hack. Let me know any aha moments that you're having if you're trying to apply it to yourself. As always, I love you guys. I hope you're taking care of yourselves, and I will see you back here again really soon.